All right, always something in the digital world, and always even better when your teacher is on the line watching. So, hopefully there was a little bit of grace under pressure there. I want to welcome everybody. A lot of new faces on the screen, so welcome to any and all of you who are first timers here at Prajna Heart Zen Center. Sharma, I want to welcome you back. It has been a long time since we've seen each other, so welcome, Sharma. And also a little shout out to Melissa, who gave a Dharma talk on Sangha a few weeks ago. Melissa, Lori and I were out on the street this morning and ran into Carrie, who joined us this morning, and she said, I watched Melissa's talk, and that's pretty cool. I'm in. And so that is the power of stepping out there and delivering your take on the Dharma. We're so privileged this morning and so grateful to have Tenshin Roshi join us. I'm going to say just a few words and then get to the main event. As those of you that know who were with us last week, over this past period of time, we've had a little bit of a changeover, a handoff. About a year ago or so, maybe a little more, Yoshin Roshi, who Lori and I were studying with at that time, said to us, I think you two should get your butts up the mountain. And Roshi, I don't know if you've heard this before or not. He said, I think you should get your butts up the mountain and go spend some time with Tenshin. He said, Tenshin is a great teacher, and I think it would be good for you to meet him and get to know him and work with him. I think that Yoshin also knew that our time on the ranch in New Mexico had us fairly well equipped for dealing with floods and fires and fences and tractors and chainsaws and plumbing and everything that comes along with a facility like that remote. So we went up there. I went up for Sesshin, I think last November. A number of people on the screen today went up for a beginner's mind Sesshin. I think 8 or 9 of you went up and did beginner's mind at Yokoji and got to meet the crew there. And we just, kind of continued to go back and started training with Tenshin Roshi. And it has been a wonderful journey, including helping to pour concrete. And I think Lori and I got pulled out of Zazen one morning during Sesshin to go work on the road that was threatening to get flooded away again. I mean, this is one of the things I love about Zen is at the end of the day, it's are you going to get things done? And how does this practice manifest itself in our real lives? One of the other things that I hold really dear about this practice is the ability to, with clarity, say yes or no. And Tenshin Roshi, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you. When I asked if you would speak to the group today, he just was yes. There was no hesitation, and we're very grateful for that. As Yoshin has, as he put it, started stepping away from Zen, and in particular a teaching role in Zen, Lori and I and the entire Sangha were very gracefully transitioned under Tenshin Roshi. We couldn't be happier about that. It was really beautiful too to see these two Zen brothers who've known each other from way back in the Maizumi Roshi days work together to make sure that a Sangha was cared for, that a Sangha was supported through a transition from teacher to teacher. So I also just want to acknowledge both Roshis in that equation and for how gracefully and skillfully that transition has been handled. Third thing I appreciate about Zen is an emphasis on brevity, which you might not know from me rambling on. So I'm going to hand it over to Tenshin Roshi, and over to you, sir, for whatever you have in store for us. Welcome. And hopefully you are still there.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you, Dan and Laurie. I really appreciate you asking me to talk. Like you, I'd like to acknowledge Yoshin, Bill Jordan, who was there when I first came over to the States in 1979. We became, fast friends at that point, and he basically, him and another of his friends called Ed Bowman, sort of introduced me to American culture. Taught me all the bad things that I know. So I appreciate it very much. We work together a lot too. And I can see that the one of you, I think Marsha's got a bunch of carpentry tools in the background, and that was one of our major points of contact where we got very close. Of course, we both studied under Maezumi Roshi, and the styles, are somewhat different, but the basic roots are there. Also, Yoshin's teacher, Jikyo, was also a good friend of mine. We trained together a lot, so there's not too much of a difference there. There's a good umbrella that you continue to be under on that level. And as Maezumi Roshi would say, Sangha is most important, community. Whether that community is virtual or not, always feel that it's there, whether we're up at the mountain or down in LA. Myself, I studied in LA for about 16 years. Yeah, I loved it. It's a great place. Hate to say it, but it's true. And, now we're up in the mountain. It's basically the same thing. The city, the mountain, wherever you practice, it's not different. I was going to talk on a case from the Book of Equanimity today. Basically, I'll say the simple version, which is when the Buddha was enlightened, he said, "I, all beings, the great earth, have or are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness." So that really doesn't matter where you are, what you are, whatever your story is. It's true right from the beginning. As Dan was talking, it has to be practiced. It has to be practiced to be brought out, to become conversant and not to lose that. It needs to be practiced over and over. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant, but it's better if you bear that in mind. All beings are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. That's Tathagata Buddha is quite often the word used there, but I prefer awakened one to thusness. Now, being awake, it's important to practice that. Here we are, can it be more awakened than this? Well, not really. The thing is to appreciate that awakenedness. When awakenedness is practiced and not the ways that we tend to take ourselves away from this, then awakenedness becomes the thing that becomes apparent to us. If you're practicing, well, when people treat me in a better way, then I will be, then that basic wonder of living tends to get covered up. I remember when I was in LA, there was some really beautiful times there, just natural times. I remember going around with Maezumi Roshi at the Zendo and seeing the dawn, the sun reflecting off the buildings in downtown. Just beauty wherever you find it, it's there. It doesn't matter whether you're in the mountains, the city, or whatever. It's always here. Interactions with people, profound, just banter between people. All the time that's here. But quite often we fail to see it. And we fail to see it simply because, you know, the second part of that statement, I, all beings, the great earth, are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. Then he adds, but because of our upside down views, we fail to see it. And this is a large part of practice, is not practicing those upside down views. I mentioned a few of them a little while ago. You know, when I become, when people do this for me, or when I have this great insight in the future, it will be that way. But one of the hardest things for us as human beings is to practice thusness over and over and over, whatever is occurring now, and not to feel that it's any less than, say, an adept's experience of thusness. You know, don't think that my experience of thusness is different than yours. You know, maybe I've swallowed it, you know, I don't know. But the important thing is to practice this over and over and over, and not put it into a context of thought and comparison. That's one of the things that we tend to do as human beings is, well, if I had their life, my life would be better. And remember, when Maizumi Roshi was alive, every talk he would basically say, appreciate your life. And when I first heard that for the first few months, I would go, well, yeah, that's okay for you. You're enlightened, you know, but how could a person like me do that? But then eventually hearing that over and over and practicing it, is I began to appreciate my life. I mean, the alternative isn't that great. You know, if I start to denigrate it and put it down, is that what am I left with? You know, but that's my machinations of the mind, things that I'm adding on top of this basic experience of thusness that's always going on. Now, if you look at things like the precepts, you know, a lot of people look at them in terms of like moralistic rules, and not many people really like to take on rules. Like for myself, I was never into that. But as I began to look at these precepts, they showed me various ways that my mind works that would take me away from being present. You know, like thoughts like, if I get rid of this aspect of my life or kill this, then things will be better. You know, no, this is what my life is now. I have this difficulty, or I have this difficult person in my life. You know, how do I work with this? You know, because there's always cleanup for these things that we do. You know, it's the same with each one, like stealing. If I get this, you know, even if it's just in the mind, if I get this, then my life will be better. What's wrong with this? You know, again, these are ideas that we tend to introduce. Quite often, if we don't use these 16 ballpark precepts to look at the way the mind works and the way that we spoil things, they tend to work on automatic. And I could go down with the whole of the precepts. You know, maybe I'll do the ones I can remember. You know, because I mean, 10 things is a lot for me to remember. 4 is probably good. You know, the third one, you know, then do not tell a lie. You know, if I lie about myself and people around me, things get a little bit not quite in sync. You know, we're seeing that in our society now. It's hard to trust because people are using lies as tools that just break up trust. Therefore, their views can be brought in. Now, for me, it is difficult if I'm telling a lie about something, because I'm not really being at home in myself. I'm trying to be something else. I remember I learned a lesson when I was about 4, because I wanted my dad to be something more than he actually was. You know, I told some of my friends that he used to play for Manchester United. You know, and I just remember my dad coming up to me, and it was the only time he hit me. He slapped me across the legs, you know, and he goes, "You gotta accept me for who I am. Don't tell lies to other people." You know, but again, is that quite often, even in ourselves, you know, from this perspective, I, all beings, the great earth, are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. We play the game of putting ourselves down. You know, we don't own up to that awakened nature that we are right from the beginning. And then we use, you know, lies to either elevate or put down our own position. Now, it's important to really see that is that, you know, I am always like this as a human being. It's not that I am better or worse. The important thing is I'm always like this, whether the situation is difficult or easy. And that's something that really has to be practiced, swallowed, and then remembered all the way through. Now you can pick up the last precept, which is do not defame the three treasures, or devalue the three treasures. You are the three treasures. So that's a really important thing to remember. This is really being in accord with this thing, wonder of wonders. I, all beings, the great earth, are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. So don't sell yourself short. As we go along, you know, things like elevating oneself and putting others down, is that look at how much of that really goes on in terms of living. What are your motivations behind putting yourself up and putting other people down? Does it make you feel better? Why? Aren't you enough already? You know, then you go on, do not talk about others' errors and faults. You know, why do you need to do that? I mean, sometimes it's a good tool, don't get me wrong. But if that's coming up on a regular basis, what is wrong with you that you need to put other people down, talk about their faults? You know, each one of us has that in ourselves. You know, and it goes on through all of the precepts with like sexual misconduct, being greedy. Why am I looking for something else beyond this? Why am I treating people as objects, etc.? And it's important to look at these basic things, and then bring it. You know, we tend to go through prejudice. In a sense that I've judged who these people are and what this world is, therefore I'll act in accord with that, rather than the basic reality of that basic equality of all beings are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. You know, being stingy, withholding, you know, not only money, but our own time. You know, in terms of, right now, this is the way life is. Can I engage with somebody else and give them benefit? You know, can I really see my life and their life as one thing? And it goes on. You know, I think I've only missed out one of them right now, and that's do not be angry. You know, but again, it's usually do not indulge in anger and hatred. They can be tools in terms of cutting through bullshit, but at the same time, it's not a matter of trying to destroy something so that problem is gone. You know, in the context of this moment in time, can I cut through the bullshit, use anger as a tool in a skillful way, and that takes some work, and actually benefit the situation? So these are 10 ways of looking at this awaken one to thusness. Now, with practice, you know, basically this is the same way from beginning to end. The practice of thusness is there. What did the Buddha do? You know, we look at his 6 years of practice before this enlightenment experience. And he really was using the teachings of his era, the Hindu teachings that were very popular at the time. He basically mastered them. He basically did the philosophies. And then he tried to do the best that he possibly could be, using the examples of his time. And so he was hanging out with people that would say, hold their arm up in the air for years until their arm withered. You know, this was regarded as a cool thing. You know, you were very highly enlightened if you could do these things of self-mortification. The Buddha himself went into eating, he sort of worked down to about 1 grain of rice over over those, say about 3 of those years that he was practicing, until eventually, and this is important because all of us, you know, find ways that we think spiritual practice is. We maybe get into the look of Zen or the ambience of Zen, and you see these things in society. That was very Zen. But what is that? What does that mean? He hadn't really gone and penetrated back to those things, and eventually he got so weak that he went for a drink of water in the river, fell in, and then Sujata, the milkmaid, pulled him out. And with that beautiful act of compassion, and also giving him some milk and some rice, he really had to look into himself and go, you know, what am I doing? Why am I trying to do this self-mortification? You know, I really haven't solved that basic question that I had. Why is there old age, sickness, and death? You know, so it was at this point he vowed to not do this displacement activity, but to actually go into that basic question. And then through that practice, and he did it open-endedly, he goes, okay, I'm really going to focus on this right now. I'm going to sit and I'm going to do this till I solve this question. Now, this is the resolution that is necessary in terms of practice. I'm going to sort this thing out. I'm not going to keep on going until I'm on my deathbed. You know, I'm going to sort it out now. If I can sort it out now, then my mind will be at peace. So that's what he did. You know, Koryu Roshi would say, die now, and then you'll never have to die again. And what is this great death they talk about? It's basically losing that observer and immersing in direct experience. You know, so that's what the Buddha did. And then at the end of that, he sees the morning star, and this, and for the first time in his life, there was nothing else. There was just this direct experience. Some of you may have had this experience. It goes, wonder of wonder, I, all beings, the great earth, are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. This is the koan of Buddhism. And basically, this is the koan for each one of us as human beings, is that, you know, we're born in this life. And this life, we can take it in whatever way we take it. And we do. We get caught up in all kinds of loops and beliefs. But still, there's that aspect. There's something, you know, maybe not quite right. And it's important to release this. And I say release it. Let it be the inquiry that takes us through, you know, the barriers that are talked about in the Zen tradition. You know, between oneself and the world around us, the ancient masters, ourself. You know, as Maezumi Roshi would say, the main barrier is between ourself and ourself, where we draw those lines between where we end and the Sangha begins, where we end and the universe begins. You know, this is what the Buddha found out, you know, when he saw the morning star. This is living in itself without a doubt. I, all beings, the great earth, have or are the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness. Now, as a group, you know, I don't know what your own quest is, but for me, this was my own quest. The Buddha's words were a parallel to what I was going through. I couldn't really accept society's view of spirituality. I had to match that until, you know, I found a good example. And in Maezumi Roshi, you know, he was a character, but the thing was that he didn't hide who he was. You know, he wasn't trying to be a Zen master called Hakyu Taizan. I mean, he could very easily put that role on. That wasn't a problem. But to be a human, to have your own challenges, I'm not saying faults, you know, this is all character. This is all part of our own beauty. Those things need to be addressed, but it's important to see that basic wonder that we have as human beings. That which is unknown, is vast, manifests as this, and manifests as everything else in this universe. That's our point of contact. That's the thing that we as human beings can see. Yeah, my life is all of this. And then the thing is what to do with this. It was nice that Dan was saying about getting things done. You know, when he was talking about Mountain Center, yeah, there's a lot of work, but it is implicit. The thing that bonds us is the practice. You know, that practice is manifested as all of these things. If it was in the city, like one was at ZCLA, there'd be arrangements for Sangha activities. There will be a lot more in terms of dealing with um, the membership, the buildings and grounds, etc. You know, but it's that activity where we get to know one another. You know, it's like with Yoshin, I learned so much from just working with him and being with him, with Maizumi Roshi, with Jikio Roshi, and all of these people. We met on all these different points of contact, not just at Dharma talks or sitting, but in that interaction. And that's where the depth and the connection was really developed. In Egyoku Roshi, who's running ZCLA, and some of you may have been there, we didn't have an awful lot in common when I came to ZCLA. But over the years, you know, we developed a really strong friendship. And these are the things that can occur. That friendship will continue till I die. I'm pretty sure of that. It's the same with each of my Dharma brothers and sisters. And with your Sangha, those connections, they'll be there. It's like family, you know, in some cases better than family, you know, as we know. Anyway, I've gone on for about half an hour or so. So if you guys have got any questions, then please bring it up. And if not, we'll finish early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go, gang. You know how to do this. You can unmute yourself and speak. I believe, I have a different view because I'm the host, but I believe if you click on participants, there's also a raise hand where you can raise your hand and say you want to talk. But please, this is a great chance to ask Tenshin anything you would like and see what comes back.
Come on.
This is not a bad
Right.
Come on, guys.
Sharma, is that?
John Harani, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Oh boy. I
Carry on.
unmuted, but I wasn't sure that I was going to ask anything. I love the stories. I've always been a storyteller. Talk to me more about ZCLA and Yoshin, and keep going. I mean, don't stop.
Yeah.
Really what I want. I want to, Yoshin was my teacher for a long time, and I have so many stories that I share with, you know, I'm a coach now for volleyball, and I share so much of it. I just feel like I'm getting the concentrated juice from every word that you're saying, and I want more, but I don't know how to ask that exactly. So I don't know. What's the first memory what's the story that you've told most about him? What's the, I'm going to be quiet.
Well, you know, the thing is that it's not just the words, you know, it's like, I was already a skilled carpenter when I came to America. And one of the things that Yoshin did was he was sort of, in many ways, putting me at ease with the ways that things were done in America as to in LA. And I would work with him, and I would look at how he did things, and I had my own ways. And there was a lot of validation of ways that we worked, and he would learn from me, and I would learn from him. And so there was a lot of getting to know him, and he me, just through doing things together. But you know, he taught me some phrases that I'll remember till I die. Like, you're not building a piano. That was one of them. Yeah, you won't see it from my house. And being from Virginia, he would say, slicker than buttered owl snot. You know, I've never seen it, but these are some of the things. Yoshin had a sense of humor. You should always remember that, you know. He's also tough, you know, and that was, you know, that worked in both ways. You know, he was hard-headed in certain ways, which was great to see because I am. He was also very tough in how he approached practice as well, as a student. So I'm now talking about Yoshin as a student. And we met on all of these different levels, in services, in Zazen, in socially, in the early days. You know, he was a character. He used to drink a lot in those days, you know. But the way that he faced his alcoholism was classic. He went through basically anti-abuse treatment, and basically when he came out, he never drank again after that. He also encouraged Maezumi Roshi to go through that and at least get the information on it. So, I mean, I know Yoshin as a friend. I know him as a teacher. I admire what he's done as a human being. In fact, we were both on a Zoom talk about Maezumi Roshi with Genpo Roshi a while back, and it was beautiful the way that he remembered those days of practice, which is a tribute to the way that he teaches now. You know, he's entering into a different sphere of his own activity, you know, and he wants to put his energy into different things now, and I admire that. It's important not to just get institutionalized in terms of teaching, but this is what he needs to do, and he's approaching it, and that's something that I've always learned from him as a human being.
Thank you.
I don't want to get into the other stories right now.
Yeah.
But those are the ones we want.
No,
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I want. Yeah.
So we have a good mix here today of people, you know, some that studied under you and many who have.
Yeah.
John Hopper, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself and go for it?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hey, John.
So, yeah, really, I got a lot of what you're sharing. So I'm in Los Angeles doing what's called trauma work and grief work.
Mm-hmm.
My son died unexpectedly 3 years ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. And so I'm in this, you know, I indulge in, I don't, like, I'm grief, and then, but I indulge in the story of what's broken about it, and that my family's broken. And then, you know, I'm living, you know, I'm sharing a space right now in a house with multiple guys in it. And it's like, they don't do it right. They don't do the dishes right. You know, I catch, you know, like, if only they would do the dishes right, then I would be okay. Or if I can get over this grief, I'll be okay. Or if this investment I've made turns out, then I'll be okay. And as you're saying that, I indulge. How do you distinguish when this is going on? What's this kind of the insight?
Well, that's part of the practice, you know, is acknowledging what's going on, especially with grief. Deal with the grief. That's the most important thing that's going on for you. And it's important to tell that story. And the more you tell it when you have trauma, is the more it comes out. It doesn't stay embedded. And so that's important. It's like when anything traumatic happens in life, you know, for myself, is I tell that story. And I let it out. If that feeling's there, I allow myself to feel it. And the thing is that in time, you move through that quicker. It'll always be there with the death of your son, you know. It's like, you know, I've had a fair chunk of death in my own life. But the more you recognize that, but recognize the love that's there for your son. You know, but he's not there. You can still talk with him, he won't answer. but at least you can express that. And also the sadness of losing. Now, whenever you're with people, is that, you know, I've been in this Zen institution for 40 years. I mean, it's like 79, you know, when I first came over, and people will never do it the way I want them to do it, you know, but I can't dwell there, you know, I just can't. It's just, if it's done there, if it's not good enough, I'll step in and do it, or I'll get someone to do it, you know. But part of it is the acceptance of who people are, but also accepting their positive aspects too, seeing that part.
Mm.
You know, and right now you're going through a difficult part, you know, in terms of your life. There's many areas that are difficult for you. Recognize this too will pass. It's not that it's fixed this way forever. And try and see the beauty in your life. Acknowledge that part, because that's also there.
Mm. Thank you.
I remember when, you know, we were in the middle of the floods, and this chasm was opening up, you know, that was about 16, 20 feet wide, 16 feet deep, and about 100 yards long. And pretty soon it was going to cut through the road. And I remember looking at it and going, at least I'm not being shot at. You know, so that's that aspect, is that these times change. It's not that it's going to be, you know, it's going to be fixed in this way. And but at the same time, it's not, don't tell yourself the story of how it will be later. It's just see the beauty that you have. You breathe it, you know, you're not, right now, you're not being shot at. You know, you possibly got enough to eat. You know, you have people that you can relate to around you. A lot of those things are working. You have the sun, moon, stars, all of those things occur. Although in LA, there's not many of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. I mean that.
Good work, John. Melissa?
Yeah.
First off, Tenshin, thank you so much for your talk today. There are so many parts of it that resonated with me. And my first question is, I love the case. What was the case number again?
I didn't even go into the book. Case 67. The
67, Book of Economics.
Avatamsaka's Sutra's Wisdom.
Okay, I thought that was, it was very beautiful. And I guess my comment is, it's always so profound to me how I love going through the precepts and like looking at the precepts, and like every time it resonates different every time, you know, no matter how many times I read them, right? Yeah. And so I loved your discussion on the precepts, and some of the things that like resonated with me is like the withholding of time, withholding of love, right? Yeah. Like where am I not being generous in my life? Yeah. And I really particularly loved your point of, and I love this about Zen practice, that we're allowed to be human here. And we all have we all have this humanity in us, because I think that never goes away. Because I feel like
you look like a human, so
right? I am, look like I am.
Yeah, you gotta escape it, you know. Yeah.
But I love that there's space for that, and that, because sometimes you can read the precepts and be like, well, I'm not doing that one. Well, not doing that one, you know. But that it's going to happen each time, right? And they're there as like a reminder, like a nudge, like, oh, okay, you know. But it doesn't mean that I'm like a bad Zen student or a bad human, or, you know, it's just a guideline. So it's funny, sometimes I even get happy when I hear that like a Zen teacher drinks a lot or something, you know, then I'm like, oh, they're human too. You know? But they are, but that's it. Yeah. It's that we all are, at whatever level of practice that we're at, like we are all human, and that's never going to go away. And the practice is, how do we kind of nudge ourselves back onto the way, or the path.
Yeah. And again, the core is that's what the Buddha realizes, that there's tremendous beauty and expanse in the human condition. Part of it is that we tend to get a description of who we are, and then that's good for a while, but then it gets a bit old, and then we have to be something so that we can be human. Rather than just seeing that basic humanity and actually looking deeply into who we are and how those things operate, and then enhancing the positive things because they tend to work, and then working on the negative parts because they tend to get in the way and spoil things. But in that effort, it's just like the edges begin to get rubbed off. But our basic tendencies and the way that we live are there as human beings. And it's important that we work on these aspects so they don't just go off on automatic, and they're appropriate for the circumstance.
I remember Yoshin,
endless in that way.
I remember Yoshin used to say, sometimes describe Zen practice as character building. I thought that was a cool description. No?
Yeah, it is. No. It is. Yeah. But, he comes from that S background too. So that's kind of important too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. And Roshi, that's Kazumi. Melissa is the one that did the Dharma talk on the Sangha.
Oh, nice. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Used to create Sangha. So
stepping up.
Valerian, your hand is up. Valerian's he's in Minneapolis.
Oh, neat. Great name.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your talk today. You mentioned cutting through the bullshit.
Yeah.
So can you speak to cutting through the bullshit with compassion?
With compassion, yeah. Remember, compassion isn't all nicey nice. Sometimes compassion is just saying things how they are. So cutting through the bullshit is quite often, and using anger in a positive way is, like somebody's trying to say, I'm selling you this car, and this car's been owned by a little old lady from Pasadena, and she only drove it to church on a Sunday, and that's not true. So you go, how can that be? Look at that ding on there. The engine's not working properly. And you just cut through the bullshit, the story that's being told. And naturally we do that as human beings. But then the thing is looking at time, place, person, and amount. Is that, who am I talking with? How much can they really take? For this to not just cut the relationship off, time, place, person. Yeah. So, the time, too, is that it may not be the right time because people are around, an amount, again, how much can you say? How much can that person take? So those are elements that are useful. And then through practicing, you become a little bit adept at it, But the main part with cutting through the bullshit is the refining of anger. So you're not aiming it at the person, you're aiming it at the activity that they're doing or the behavior. And then you can deal with the behavior. So make it less personal. And then, maybe a relationship can be developed through doing that you're being honest, but you're not, say, attacking the person.
Right. Excellent.
But it's a practice. And things like anger, I've been working on that for about 40 years or more, probably before I even started practicing, because I have a tendency in that direction. So then it's important to be able to soften it, to say the truth, and then to deal with things in such a way that, again, that bonding can occur. And then the cutting off aspect, that's the last stage.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Chalet, Tennessee. Philip, how's your connection?
When I heard cutting through the bullshit, I really
Yeah.
thought that was pertaining to like your own bullshit.
Yeah, it can be internal too. Yeah, I mean, it's not one directional. It's omnidirectional.
Yeah, because I have a lot of bullshit I need to cut through. So
One bullshit at a time.
just one bullshit at a time.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot better. It's a lot more sharp that way. Yeah.
So it was actually helpful and very relevant for me to talk about cutting through the bullshit with other people, because I did that really unskillfully the other day, and I just wasn't able to manage the amount of bullshit that I was being dealt, and I in turn very ungracefully laid it bare the way I saw it, and so it's just helpful to hear you talk about the various aspects of.
Yeah, you know, and we're human. You know, the thing is that when you look at the history of humanity, there's never a place in humanity where we haven't had anger and fighting. You know, we didn't. In other words, one of my favorite sayings is, we didn't get to the top of the food chain by being nice. So that's the work for us as human beings, is working with these so-called negative aspects of our own being. That's really where the work begins, and that's where compassion is developed. You know, rather than using this very lazy thing, these people like this, therefore get rid of them. You know, it's just like, no, who are these people? How are they operating? Let's find out. And then going for the things that we can bond with, and then going for the things that we need to work on, and then bonding in that way. And this is the beauty of using the human condition. You see, never has Buddhism been overlaid into humanity. Never really has Christianity been able to be a blanket for our human condition. You know, the beauty of, say, Buddhism is that we find out what this condition is. We see how it works. We bring out the beauties. We work with the difficulties. You know, most people go, well, you know, now I'm a Buddhist, now I've got the suit of armor of Buddhism. All beings have the wisdom and virtue of the awakened one to thusness, you know, but they forget the underlying stuff, the stuff that's causing the problems, you know. So it's like Trungpa would say, spiritual materialism. You know, now I'm a Buddhist, I identify with these things, but I don't identify with these. So then the shadow develops, you know. But it is these things, the working with these things, that really develops depth. When we see the depth of our own greed, anger, ignorance, to name a few, you know, we see there's tremendous work there, but there's tremendous insight into our own nature when we go into those things. And it's the same with the beauty too, you know, love, compassion, wisdom. And it's those depths that really bring out the beauty in the human condition. Yeah, and the cutting through the bullshit is really useful nowadays, especially, you know.
Good, Tennessee.
Well,
Thank you.
Like a really super grandiose example of using anger, you know, in a very incredible ways, just like Martin Luther King Jr. or people like really channeled that into social change, you know.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of anger there. Like that's a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's found a way to be beautiful. So
yeah. And imagine if it wasn't expressed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's important to look at the opposite too. And then it makes the work easier. This needs to be done. And then that's where patience comes in too, because society tends to have that thing of, yeah, okay, everything will stir up for a bit, then it'll get calm again. But if we keep reminding ourselves and bringing that up and cutting through the bullshit, which is a practice in itself, then there's a good chance of these changes occurring. But each one of us, it lies in our hands in that way.
Lori, go ahead.
This really brings up, there are so many variables, and there are so many, there's so much information out there, and there's so much to remember. What's so important is to remember to sit and observe these things. You're really taking me back to just seeing that that's the root where we can really, really start over, and get a chance to see that. It's just so helpful to remember that, for me anyway.
Yeah. And then, just coming back to the koan is where the Buddha says, wonder of wonders. Is that isn't just like chaff, it's not a filler. Is that the fact that I can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, think. That's an amazing thing. Why do I look over there for more money, power, verification? Isn't this fantastic? In that, on that level.
Absolutely. Thank you. So
yeah.
Roshi, do you have time for one more? I know you. Roshi is.
Yeah, I'm on a roll.
Okay. Yeah. So Philip.
Yeah. I probably won't say anything during the next talking.
Yeah. Roshi has another talk at 11:30 via Zen Mountain Center. So.
Yeah.
Philip, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Great. Thank you so much for the Teisho. Very beneficial. I appreciate how grounded it is in regular everyday life.
Shows. I just do talks. Teisho is Japanese. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate talks as well. I would appreciate, or I would love if you could touch on navigating the precept. I will, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say it correctly. I will not speak ill of others. Can you talk about that?
When you do it, see how it feels and see your motivation in that process, and then see what the reward is. Usually we work off reward as to activity, and if there's a reward there, then we'll keep on going, but see what the reward is. And see what the cost is on the other hand to you. And it's important, even if it's painful, is just keep on looking at that dynamic, and at some point the hold drops off. The hold, that is, drops off, and it becomes easier. But usually there's a motivation. I'm not feeling so great about myself, therefore I'll put them down, put them on the same level, and you don't really need to do it. It can be used in positive ways though too. Is that if somebody say is causing damage within whatever sphere you're in, and it really needs to be addressed, is put them down, but do it in a wise way. But that is the that's where it's being used as a positive tool. In the main, look at why you're doing it, and then it's not going to go off on automatic. It's not just going to be, I'm feeling this way, therefore I'll put that person down. It's not even examined. It just becomes a way of being. And you'll notice that some people do operate on that way too. But there's, in terms of observation and being able to feel something, is that is such a powerful tool. Awareness will cut through anything in time. And a lot of times we get impatient and go, oh, I'll never get through this, rather than going, well, I'm going to continue doing it. And in time, the situation becomes clear, or the habit drops off. And I can say that from my own years of practice. It's not easy, but it begins to work. And it's never complete either on that level. But you know, you're alive, you kick in, might as well do something with it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Awareness will cut through everything in time. That was very nice. Thank you.
All right.
Beautiful picture of you and your daughter, Philip.
Yeah.
What a cutie, Roman. Anybody else? We're at almost 5 after 11, and I know Roshi has another talk at 11:30, but this is your chance.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Roshi. To everybody, I won't get everybody's names, but Alva, Tracy, whoever's there with Tracy on the screen, Carrie, your first time. Thank you for joining. We have a full schedule here in LA, all digital at this point, of course, but we sit together as a group and have talks and discussions. Roshi, thanks so much for making.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I'll sign off. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll finish with the 4 vows, people. So here we go. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to